watching
State of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. Grow your real estate business. You're watching State of Real Estate. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of State of Real Estate. My name is John Chrismo, and this show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. We're here every single Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time, to help you grow your real estate business. And what we're talking about today is getting a head start on 2024. What are some tips? What are some tricks? What are some strategies that this isn't just things we're like, oh, let's try this out for this year. This is something that we look at and review every single year as we're not only trying to develop ourselves further, but everyone it is who, I'm also, in addition to working with the Tampa School of Real Estate, a broker with multiple licenses. So there's a lot of people it is that we work with development and goal setting and business planning on a regular basis. So we've got a lot of really great information to share with you today. Thank you for tuning in. And if at any point you have any questions where you'd like to speak to one of our advisors confidentially, I'll put the number right here on the board. Phone number is 813-333-2676. And feel free to chat your questions publicly if you'd like, or again, if you want to reach out confidentially to one of our advisors, 813-333-2676, and you can browse our whole catalog of courses at tsre.us. So thanks for tuning in today. We are live, so again, if you do have any questions, drop those in the chat. Would love to help you better understand anything as it relates to your 2024. But for the time being, we're going to take a hypothetical situation of, let's say you're brand new. You don't have a real estate license. You've been wanting to get into real estate. You're maybe stuck in a job that you feel like isn't the best 5, 10-year, 20-year lifetime type of plan. And you know what? Maybe real estate, being a real estate agent isn't the lifetime plan, but maybe it's a stepping stone to become more of a real estate investor. Maybe it's a stepping stone to being more of an entrepreneur. Maybe it's a stepping stone to you owning your own home. There's a lot of benefits, derivatives. So the one thing I remember about calculus is what a derivative means, not necessarily how to calculate one, but derivative means a benefit, an additional benefit. And simply having your real estate license, you unlock the potential not only to earn referral fees for not even practicing real estate, just simply referring real estate. So having a real estate license, you could earn a percentage of the commission just for referring the deal. And you could do that pretty much worldwide, as long as whatever local jurisdiction doesn't require you to have a license. But since you're just referring the business, that's pretty much going to always be okay. But let's go to the board here and let's break it down from the beginning. Now, if you already have a real estate license, if you're already further along in the process, the strategies that we're outlaying here, whatever that next step might be for your career, maybe you're somebody who is considering taking that next step to go from a sales associate to a broker associate. And we actually have a couple live broker classes on the schedule right now that are instructor-led courses. And if you've taken our instructor-led programs before, you just know how well our instructors can relay this information and communicate this information and help make things much more memorable. So all of our instructor-led programs, if you go check out the thousands of reviews we have, whether it's the video on demand, the live online, or the good old-fashioned in-person classes, the instructor-led format really helps make the information come alive as much as possible. So, you know, just going off of Tampa School of Real Estate, because you're like, okay, well, what ultimately do we have here at the school that's going to help you with your real estate career? So number one, getting started, getting licensed. Number two, your first renewal. And that's your post-licensing. I'm not going to put continuing education on here as something, because we're talking about goals. And continuing education, yes, you got to get it done, but is that necessarily a goal? Is that something that's a major milestone? Not necessarily. Don't lose your license, of course. Make it a priority to get it done. But I don't think that's going to be as much of an eye-opening experience as getting licensed can be, as completing post-licensing, your first renewal, because that post-licensing course is a very different curriculum than the curriculum to get licensed. But maybe you're also going to upgrade to broker. If you've got 2 years of experience, you're eligible to become a broker, even if that experience is out of state. So if you're transferring to Florida, you're moving to Florida, you want to get your real estate license here. If you already have 2 years of experience within the last 5 years, you could actually qualify to get your broker license. Now, you might wonder, why would I want to get my broker license versus just being a sales associate? Well, it's what ultimately allows you to have pretty much true freedom in terms of there's no one you answer to except for the Florida Real Estate Commission, of course, and other law enforcing bodies, of course. But in terms of having someone you report to or answer to or ultimately have to abide by the rules of a brokerage, because as a sales associate, you join into a brokerage, and there's a lot of people that are extremely happy just as a sales associate, because they don't have to have the overhead and the office expense and the power and the water and the janitorial and the permitting and the remodeling and all of that goes into having an actual office. So it could be a pretty sweet deal, especially because there's literally no limit to how much money it is you could make with your real estate license. And most brokers, so there's a whole, without getting too deep into this, there's 100% brokers where you can get all your commission. And there's split brokers where the broker gets a percentage of your commission. But even with the split brokers, there's usually some sort of annual capping system to where it caps out where the broker doesn't earn any. But even if there wasn't, and there's always some sort of split, because there are some types of deals out there where there isn't any sort of cap, there's just a perpetual split forever. And based on the value you get from your brokerage, that might make sense for your business. But even if there is that forever split, there's never a situation, never that I've seen at least, where you stop making money. It's like, all right, well, you've sold too many houses, so you're not going to make any more money. Nope, that's not the world we live, not the country we live in at least. That's not how the market works. In real estate, you're able to earn every single deal that ends up closing. Now, ultimately, if you're in this for the long run, you want to do this ethically, and really beyond ethically, but really going above and beyond in terms of service. So that way you could establish future business with all the clients it is that you've done business with before. And so if you've already got your real estate license, you're like, all right, I'm about to tune out of this because this is way too basic. But getting back to these basics of what it is that we actually do as a real estate agent is important, not just when you're brand new and trying to wrap your head around all this, but even when you have your real estate license, you're like, okay, how do I do these fundamentals, these basics, these essentials better? And maybe it's not about how do you do them better, but how do you maybe help somebody? So maybe you're joining in on here because maybe that next thing, and this is kind of like an in-between of being a sales associate versus being a broker. And this is what a lot of people do. Rather than opening their own brokerage, they'll simply start a team. Now, why would you want to start a team? Why would somebody want to join your team? Well, because a team environment creates opportunity beyond just the single real estate agent. Now, you could be extremely successful just as a single real estate agent. Matter of fact, there's one agent I know personally that's out there making over $1 million a year in gross commission, and he's doing that pretty much as a single agent, not necessarily as a team. And so that's 100% possible to do crazy levels of business, especially if you're working smarter rather than focusing on working harder. But if you want to create something larger than yourself to where you could take a vacation and your team is still going to make money. I mean, you can't be away forever, maybe. Or could you? Could you structure it and set it up that way? You could potentially. As long as you stay within the laws and rules that you learn in your pre-licensing course, you could build out and structure a team however it is that you see fit. What part of the deals can they help with? What part of your business do you not want to do? And now you may be brand new and you're like, wow, yes, someday I could have a team. And this is good because you want to dream big. You want to see the big possibilities. Maybe that does involve opening your own brokerage office. But even if you don't obtain that license yet, there's a lot you could do just from that team perspective, because that's almost like you're a brokerage within a brokerage. You're not a separate brokerage. The law makes it very clear. There's very specific words you're not allowed to use in your team name to not confuse your team with being an actual brokerage, and you still must include the name of your brokerage in any sort of advertisement. And there's also a rule now where the name of the team and the brokerage the team name cannot be larger than the brokerage name as well. So the team name has to at least can be no bigger basically than the same size as the main brokerage name. And so if you want to get beyond those restrictions, that's where you could open up your own brokerage, and then there's not really any limits on what you could call your brokerage. You can call it whatever you want. As long as you stay within the FREC guidelines, you could advertise it however it is that you want. So you have, again, the truest, the biggest, the most freedom, the most potential, but also with more risk associated because there is more cost, more expenses, more overhead, but a lot more potential, a lot more opportunity. It could be what, again, is that next level to your real estate career. And so, again, you could be brand new and you might be thinking, okay, I'm just going to get started here and let's see where it goes. But when you have bigger goals and bigger dreams, what it is that it is beyond just being a sales associate, and maybe it's not becoming a broker. Maybe it's not operating and opening a business of a brokerage, which again is something where you could do something much bigger than yourself, especially if you're working smart, especially if you've got the efficiency and working smart thing down. You could teach others that same efficiency, that same smartness, and you get a little piece of their deal, whether that's some sort of transaction fee, some sort of commission split, some sort of something. And you could even have people in your brokerage starting teams where there's a team leader who's essentially if we're thinking of this as a brokerage within a brokerage, again, they're not a broker. They don't have to be a broker. They could be a sales associate, but they're basically the one that's in charge of the team. They still ultimately will answer to the broker. But let's say you join a 100% commission split. As far as money on the table here, you could create a commission split structure within your team where, as the team leader, as just like kind of an overhead across everything, every deal that comes through, even if it's one of your agent's own leads, you could still get a piece of that. You could structure your team in that way. Now, what is a real estate team? What does any real estate business need to be successful? It's people, it's leads, it's contacts. And really, there's all kinds of things you could do. If you watch some of our previous videos that we've done before, there's tons of things you could do to portray yourself as a real estate professional, even if you are brand new to real estate, and a lot of things you can do to attract people to you. And that's going to be a big part to growing any level of real estate business. Even if you're just doing this on a referral basis, the more people that you know, the more potential commissions it is you could earn, or even if it's just a percentage of commission because you're doing this on a referral basis. A referral basis is super easy. If you're not familiar with what that is, even experienced agents aren't really too familiar with the concept sometimes. It means that, again, you refer the lead, you refer it to another agent to do the deal, and you get a percentage of that commission. It's a one-page agreement. You can refer leads pretty much anywhere around the world. So if you have family out of state, family in another country, family in another area, friends, past co-workers, anybody that you know, and especially with the power of the internet, you can imagine how far this can really potentially go. And let's say you get really good at generating leads. And so maybe that is the thing that you shine with, is generating the leads, maybe attracting the attention, getting people in the funnel, but maybe you're not the best with follow-up. And so in a team type of environment, you could do this really, check with your broker, but essentially right away when you get your license, you could start teaming up with other people, even if it's not an official team. Maybe you're just going to work on kind of like a trial basis with another agent. You go get the leads, they help close them. You work together, maybe do a 50-50 split between the two of you, and you see how that goes. And that's kind of like a trial run at doing a team. Now, maybe one of you is more so the team leader, and maybe that person is taking charge. And then maybe you could have listing agents that are out there going on listing appointments, and you have buyer's agents that are out there going on buyer's appointments. You have transaction agents that are basically overseeing the contract to close. And you could really fill people into these different skill sets because the contracts The transaction side of things, the contract to close, that's very detailed orient, requires a lot of organization, whereas the listing agents and the buyer's agents definitely call for a more charismatic, more people-y salesperson type of individual, which also those people tend to be a little less organized, just from general, in most cases. There's exceptions to that rule, of course, but for the most part, the people that are people are usually not the most organized. And the people that are very organized and neat and tidy and keeps everything on track and the dates and on top of that, they're maybe not always people persons. Again, there's exceptions to those rules, and those people can be truly incredible when they could overlap across the two in some way, shape, or form. But understanding where people might have some strengths and some weaknesses, and then placing people in those right, correct positions based on their strengths and their weaknesses. A buyer's agent role, that's typically where new agents, if you're a new agent joining a team, you might go into that buyer's agent role first. Because if you've seen the TV shows of showing properties, it's pretty easy. Turn on the lights, open the blinds, schedule the appointments, plan them out in an organized way to view them. Try to ask good questions to help prioritize which property is maybe the winner out of all the ones it is that you're seeing, and then asking for the offer. So there's definitely some finesse you can develop to do this well. But a lot of times this is where a lot of new agents get started, is whether it's on their own or they're part of a team, is working with buyers. Now, sellers, on the other hand, you have a listing appointment, and that listing appointment is usually a make it or break it in terms of you have the deal or you don't. Whereas you could have a lot more touch and go with a buyer before you end up having a deal, whereas essentially once you get that listing agreement signed and you get that property listed, if you're doing your job, I don't even want to say right, but even if you're just doing the bare minimum, that property will sell as long as it's priced appropriately. Now, the more it is that you can do, the more you could do to help market the property, the more it is that you can do to help make the property show in its best perspective, from in terms of photos, in terms of descriptions, in terms of being available to coordinate. That's what can make you, again, a truly great listing agent to help get your listings closed faster. But in terms of getting those listings in the first place, there's a lot of follow-up, a lot of back and forth and touch and go in terms of communication, leading up to the point to where, like, okay, yes, we do want to sell. Let's talk about what it's going to cost. Let's talk about what we're going to walk away with. Let's talk about the marketing strategy. Let's talk about open houses. Let's talk about showings. Let's talk about all these little details, so that way I could get the green light. We agree upon the commission. We get it listed. We get it photographed. We maybe do a virtual tour, maybe even do a video, all kinds of things like that that you can do to help get the property the most exposure. And so as I'm running through all these things here, if you already have a real estate license, which of these things are you not doing? Which of these things that I've mentioned that you could maybe do in 2024 that's going to unlock so much more potential? It could be something small, such as I'm just going to start doing more open houses at listings. Now, if you're new here, you might be wondering, well, why wouldn't you do open houses? Aren't open houses how you get the property sold? Typically not. Less than 1% of houses sell as a result of an open house. That's a stat right from the Association of Realtors. So less than 1% of houses sell as a result of an open house. So why are open houses done? Well, number one, because of that 1%. Number two, it helps attract attention. And so while the open house might not be the thing that gets it to sell, it might be what initially attracts the attention to the property. But what's in it, most importantly, for probably more than anybody in terms of who can really profit the most from an open house, it's the real estate agent. And that's because this gives the agent the opportunity to meet the public. And not just any public, not just like you're standing on a street corner waving a sign trying to get people to buy real estate with you, but you're getting people to come to you who are interested in buying a property, if not the one you're in, something similar to what you're in. Now, yes, you do have some nosy neighbors. Yes, you do have people that are just coming in to get the free food and snacks. Yes, you have people that are not serious at all, but it doesn't mean that they won't ever be serious. It just means that they're not serious today. They might just be bored and they might just like looking at houses. And if that's the case, fine, welcome in. Let me give you the grand tour. Here's my card. Let me make sure we can stay in touch. What's the best way for me to reach you? Simple question with that. And usually that's going to be through a phone. Great, what's your phone number? Let me put it down here so that way we could stay in touch. And really, with open houses, you should be having a sign-in at the beginning. But beyond the sign-in, I would still ask for the phone number. Make sure you got it twice, because they might put a fake phone number down on the sign-in. If they're walking in for the first time cold and they just have to sign in to get in, I would assume there's a high percentage of those numbers are not going to be accurate. Not all of them. There's probably going to be some real ones in there, especially the people who are serious. But there also could be people who are serious who just don't want to be bothered by another real estate agent, and then they maybe meet you and they like you and you're really hitting it off. But if you don't ever ask for their phone number, they might forget about you and lose your business card and fall out of touch. So if you're that small change of you being proactive is like, hey, what would be the best way for me to stay in touch with you? You should be asking that every single person you meet. And you might say, well, why would you want to keep in touch? Keep in touch? Well, I mean, you seem like a great person. I love collecting great people. I'd love to stay in touch with you. I mean, if there's any way I could be of value, I would love to help you. But ultimately, I just want to be the most connected person in the world. That's my goal. Would you help me with that goal? I want to be the most connected person in Tampa. I want to be the most connected person in whatever. That could be the reason why. And if you have answers to these questions, it doesn't matter how ridiculous they might be sometimes. But if you could say it with a confident, fun, charismatic way, those are the people who are really good at generating the leads. But at the same time, so let's say you're just a single agent. You're not going into a team round, because we actually had this question on Ask the Instructor. Ask the Instructor is something we do every single week, and it's every single Wednesday. So if you have our Pass First Try bundle, that gives you access to our Ask the Instructor sessions. That's every Wednesday at 12 noon. And I'm there basically a live Q&A, members only essentially Q&A for it. So any questions you have, whether about the exam, passing the exam, or investing in real estate, or starting your real estate career, that's what that's for. And so this question came in this week, and it was, should I join a team or should I start out as a individual? And so we've kind of covered that team route, and really more so from the perspective of how you could create a team. And maybe that does involve you starting with a team, but I wouldn't say that being on a team is going to lead to having your own team. Because being on a team, there's a lot, especially if you're just joining into a team, especially if you're a new agent joining in as a buyer's agent, there's a lot in terms of the transaction and the deal that is potentially overseen or handled to a certain degree. Every team could be different. There's no standardized model or anything like that, so it really depends. But usually that's what would be valuable, at least to a new agent, to join into something like that. But because of you being only involved with part of the process rather than seeing the whole picture and really building the business from the ground up, that's what it could be, where it could be very difficult. And I've seen a lot of people that get started with a team who don't necessarily ever do anything more than the team. Now, they might make good money, because there's a lot of money to be made in real estate, and you can still make good money on a team, but there's so much more money that you could make being your own boss. Because even when you have a broker, you're so much more your own boss than when you're on a team. The team is a much more micromanaged version, typically, of a brokerage. So it really also comes back to the question of, why are you getting into real estate? For a lot of people, it is the money, the unlimited income potential. That's at least somewhere at the top of the list, if not the number one thing. But for most people, the number one thing isn't necessarily the money. It's the concept of being your own boss, being able to make your own schedule, being able to be in charge, being able to structure your business how you want, to be able to reap the rewards of what it is that you invest. And so going the route more so of a sales agent on your own, essentially, and I don't want to say on your own, because if you join a good brokerage, you're not really on your own. Now, it's up to you, because you're pretty much always an independent contractor, whether that's a team or working with a brokerage. Maybe there's some team environments that involve some sort of hourly pay or something like that, but that might be if you're like making cold calls and things like that. Maybe you're doing office work as opposed to being a buyer's agent. There's usually not an hourly wage associated with a buyer's agent. Maybe if you're working with a home builder, but the problem with working with a home builder is you could only sell that home builder's properties if they're just a developer and not a broker. Most home builders are just registered as developers, so if you work for them, you could only sell for them. Whereas at a brokerage, you could literally broker any deals, any buyer, any seller. You could bring them together for residential, and depending on what your brokerage would allow, maybe commercial, maybe businesses, industrial, any type of real estate. And businesses in Florida are assumed to be real estate. But let's get back to square one. You're getting your real estate license. And maybe someday you want to start a team. Maybe someday you want to own your brokerage. But let's focus a little bit deeper on the getting of the license and getting really your career off the ground. So getting the license, I'd recommend that Pass First Try bundle because, again, that Pass First Try bundle, it's going to include not just all the exam prep tools that you need to expedite this process as much as possible, but also those weekly Ask the Instructor sessions to keep you accountable, to keep you on track, to keep you going, as well as get any of your questions answered. You can always call or chat in with us as well, so that's always available to you. But those live sessions are, again, a great way to keep yourself on track because it's a regularly scheduled Wednesday, 12 noon every single week. And so that's going to help you expedite this process. But now, once you have your real estate license, once you get your real estate license and you're ready now to get your business going and off the ground, what's very important is having a strong plan. And I don't necessarily mean a detailed plan, because what you're going to find is that the details are going to change. The details may vary. But you have to, running your own business, there's so many more areas it is that you're overseeing. So let me put a little example up here. So let's say this is the team. And that team might have, again, the team leader. And they might also have usually some sort of administrative support. Because if you're a single agent and you're really, you're a team of one, let's say that this is you. If you're the people person, again, high likelihood that you might not be the best at organization, keeping track of things, staying on top of things. Maybe you are, and that's great. You're one of a kind, but also at the end of the day, there's only so much time that you have specifically. So you've got to find what are those things that are weaknesses. But for a lot of people, again, that are going to be naturally talented in sales, they don't always like doing the paperwork or keeping track of things. And what's going to be essential for your business in the long run is having happy, satisfied clients, because unless you want to constantly be looking for new leads, you want to take care of your current clients, because you never know when they want to buy another piece of property. Maybe they want to invest in real estate, because everyone wants to be a real estate investor these days, and you could become a real estate investor yourself through real estate, through banking up the commission money, because the commissions that you could earn are astronomical in some cases. So it's all a negotiable amount. It's a percentage of the deal, and there's a lot it is that you've got to do as a real estate agent. But compared to what you have to do in most other professions, a lot of people would consider what we do easy. A lot to it, but we can make it look easy. And when we make it look easy, chances are it's not just that this is easy, it's that we've got some sort of support system, whether it's automations, whether it's systems, whether it's processes, or a lot of times people. So having some sort of administrative support, that might be one leg of the team. And that might be, again, the first foray you have into having a team. And this could even be somebody unlicensed. Now, depending on whether they have a license or not, there's less that they could do in that administrative role if they don't have a license, but still a lot that they could help out with. Maybe you handle the license things, and you have, and this could even be, a son, a daughter, a family member. It could be anybody. And maybe they're just working on a part-time basis, but maybe they're every single week checking on everything, making sure important dates are all figured out, and running up your calendar and scheduling showings. And there's a lot that can be done to support your business. Now, another thing that a team will typically add on at some point is going to be buyer's agents. Because on average, it does take 3 times the amount of time to work with a buyer compared to working with a seller. But the sellers do still take time, and especially as you get good at marketing, you might even have some listing agents. So you as the team leader are not having to meet with buyers or meet with sellers. You have agents that are doing that. And once you're able to generate enough business, and so something that's going to maybe help you generate more leads is something typically referred to as an ISA or an inside sales associate. And so they're pulling in, trying to get leads, they're trying to get business, and maybe you're growing even further, and so maybe you have somebody that's in charge of your social media. And so again, you could really build so much of a business, and eventually you could turn this into a brokerage if you wanted to. A lot of brokerages, though, will give you so many reasons to do this all under them. So they could get their little cut, their little split, their little fee it is that they're going to make off of whatever the transactions it is they are. But again, for the infrastructure, for the tools they provide, for the office space, for anything like that, that's what make the broker still valuable, to where you don't want to get your broker license. But if you did want to turn this into your own brokerage, go full on with your own branding and really, again, only having to answer to the Florida Real Estate Commission rather than having to follow the rules and regulations of the brokerage or the franchise or whatever it might be, a lot you could potentially do. But here's the thing, as a single agent, you're essentially doing this all. You're not only the CEO, you're the admin. Oh, and let's also talk, when we're talking about CEO, and we're not even necessarily going to even call CFO, but accounting. That's a big part of this, helping take advantage of the tax code to be able to run your business most efficiently in terms of tax preparedness, so that way you could minimize your tax liability. A lot of things you could do to reinvest in your business, so that'll ultimately pay you in the long run. And that's what the government wants you to do. They want you to reinvest, and that's why they give these tax advantages for if you're reinvesting into your business. But to take full advantage of that, and also the programs, the grants, and so on and so forth, so accounting. But that's also another thing that you're doing all in-house. So you can see how, as an individual agent, if you're doing this all, that's a lot of jobs to have. And so that's where, again, you might start bringing someone in. Maybe the first thing, again, is bringing in someone for administrative. Maybe you're bad at social media, so maybe you hire a service to help with social media. Maybe you have an accountant, and it's a good accountant that you could talk to and help you with your accounting things. I mean, yeah, you got to do the buyer's agents and the seller and the listing agents and be all the agents, but imagine how many deals you could do if you teamed up with some other agents. Maybe they're newer agents, but you show them the way, you show them what you do, and in exchange for them being on your team, you're also providing leads, because maybe you're good at generating with leads, or maybe you have inside sales agents that are helping you generate leads. And the great thing about having a real estate license is all of these people, if they have a real estate license, they could all be cut in on the deals. They could get a certain percentage of the deal. Now, ultimately, it has to be the broker that pays out any sort of commissions. You can't pay commissions. But maybe you're creating some of these roles on an hourly basis, like a social media expert. You're probably not cutting them in on a deal. They don't need to necessarily have a real estate license. And that might give you a lot more opportunity to people if they don't have a real estate license. And if you can make enough commission money, then you could run your own payroll. Even just as a team leader, you could have your own payroll. So you can't pay commissions, but you can pay payroll, meaning like some sort of hourly wage or salary. So you could have a payroll service, sign up for some little online payroll service, and you could have a payroll that pays your social media person or your administrative person. Again, the administrative person, there's certain things they can't do if they don't have a real estate license, but in terms of administrative work, there's a lot of it that they can do that they don't need a real estate license for. So that's maybe somebody else that could be on the payroll. Accounting, again, you could maybe have someone, maybe some sort of service, maybe even bookkeeping services that help keep track of all your expenses. You ultimately could have a CFO if you're really big time. You're adding another executive to basically be in charge of the money and the finances. That would be a CFO typically. You have your COO, Chief Operations Officer, or maybe some sort of manager managing these listing agents and sales agent and buyer's agents. You maybe have a manager managing your ISAs, making sure that lead flow is coming in. And again, so maybe they're getting some payroll. Maybe if they have licenses, again, you could cut them in on a percentage of the deals. But at this point, you're growing into a business. If these are all individual people and this isn't all just what you're doing yourself here. And so again, if you already have a real estate license, you're like, wow, look at the potential. Look at the opportunities for advancement. If you've just been a single agent, now you can make good money. Like I just mentioned earlier, an agent making over $1 million a year in gross commission income as an individual agent. But while he's making that $1 million a year in gross commission income, he's directly overseeing all of this. Because he's a one-man band. Have you guys ever seen that? Maybe at like the state fair or something like that, where they got the one-man band. He's like stomping his foot around, and he's playing a guitar, and he's shaking his little like tambourine on his butt, and he's got a big drum on his back that he's somehow controlling with his feet, and there's all like he's doing all the. That's what you are as an individual agent, and you know you could be a great one-man band, but there's only so many deals it is that you could do. You could do all of this yourself, but if that agent wants to go for $1 million to $2 million, that's, I mean, maybe he gets into larger real estate. I mean, it's he keeps doubling his income. That's another thing. But you get into larger price point deals. You start working more with developers. There's still a lot you could do. And actually, I do believe he does have some assistance in terms of administrative, in terms of other things like that. But let's say, even if it's not $1 million, even if it's $100,000, that might be astronomically more than what you're making now. Maybe $250,000 is astronomically more. Maybe $500,000 is astronomically more. And maybe that's what you're able to achieve as a single real estate agent. But now, how do you make that double? How do you make that triple? How do you make that 10 times? How do you 10x your income? Maybe there's some magic bullet, some magic words that you got to say that are going to change everything for you. But usually those are going to be more marginal improvements. So if you really want to, again, break into new opportunities, just like getting your real estate license in the first place is what maybe unlocks this whole earning potential to where you went from earning like $50,000, $60,000 a year to earning $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 a year. And that's great. But again, understand you're doing all of this. And if you could add some help on the admin side, if you could add some help on the social media side, if you could add some help on the lead generation and follow-up side, if you could have some help working with all the buyers, if you could have some help working with all the sellers, if you have all those sellers, you could do so much more business. Because once you start to get some systems and processes down, in terms of a business, that actually is what becomes valuable. If you were to sell this team, and these are all individual people working their parts. Let's say you're the team leader here, you're the CEO, and you have people for everything else. You might be left wondering, well, what is it that you're actually doing here? And that puts you in a very strong position to be able to have an exit strategy. To where if you want to sell this whole thing that you created here, even though it's not a brokerage, it's just a team. If you have strong people, again, strong managers in these roles here overseeing these different areas, you might even, again, have an admin manager. Overseeing all the administrative. You might have a chief operations officer. And you might say, well, can I do all of this? The question is not, can you do all of this? Because you can. I believe 100% that you could do all of this. That's what all the single real estate agents out there do, is they do all of this. But the real question isn't not, can you do all this? I believe 100% you can. It's not a question of how well, because there's only so well you can do this individually. So the bigger question, the larger question is, how many other people who could do this well? And maybe not do the whole thing well. Maybe you're magic that you could do this whole thing extremely well. But maybe what you do with buyers, maybe you could teach that out to somebody. And now you have somebody doing what you do so well as a buyer, and you have 10 buyer's agents. And maybe add another 10 listing agents. And if you have 10 buyer's agents and 10 listing agents, 20 agents doing what you do, and maybe they're only 95% as good as you, maybe only 80% as good as you. Even if they're only half as good as you, if there's 10 of them, 20 of them total, can they do more business than you? Because if there's 20 of them, even if there's only if they're only half as good as you, they're still 10 times better than you. So if you want to 10x your income, and this would be how you would 10x your gross, you would get 20 people that are half as good as you, only half. They only have to be 50% as good as you. And even if they're not at 50% yet, maybe that's where your training and your processes and your systems comes in to bring them up from 20% as good as you to 50% as good as you. And if you get 20 of those people, 50% as good as you, that's going to be the equivalent of having 10 people as good as you. And that's going to 10x your gross commission income. Now, yes, you are going to have increased expenses, increased overhead, increased costs. More risk, so to say, but it's not going to be 10 times more. And chances are you could really find some shining stars. If you've got a team of 20 people, that's a serious team. And they're not going to just be 20 losers. You're going to have some people that are going to be better than the others and produce more and do a lot. And if you have a structure that rewards them based on performance, because again, this is all based on percentages of the deal, I mean, you could see where this could be extremely lucrative. And so if you've got 20 agents out here doing deals, and you let's say if you have another 10 ISAs out there calling leads, booking appointments, this would be a powerhouse team, essentially involving 30 people here, another, let's say, 5 people on the administrative side to deal with all the contracts and whatnot, and you've got, let's say 3 people doing social media. I mean, we're talking maybe like 40 people here. How valuable would that be? And could you do something like that? Absolutely. Now, getting started, just being able to do this on your own, just this being you, if you were doing all of this here, again, you could still make a lot of money. It's all a commission. It's a percentage of the sale, typically around like 2, 3, maybe 4% of the sale price. For just working with one side, usually, we're looking at 5 to like 7%, something like that. It's all negotiable. So if you can negotiate 10%, you can get paid 10%. You negotiate 50%, you get paid 50%. There's no limits, there's no caps. The key thing, though, is that it's always negotiable. There's no standardized type of amount. It's a free market type of system, and there's antitrust laws that prohibit any sort of standardization of commission. So if you're a good negotiator, that could be very powerful, and that would be somebody who would be great, especially in a listing agent type of role. And so based on all these things it is you could be doing, especially if you're just an individual agent here, how can you be the best seller's agent if you're good at negotiating, working with sellers, you're good at getting listings, because that's typically the easiest way to multiply your income in real estate, is focusing more on listings. And you could do that right in-house where you're the team of one. How do you get more listings? And if you're just getting started in real estate, you might be, which of these do I focus on? Do I do the social medias? Do I make reels? Do I focus on... now, if you have deals, yes, don't let those deals fall apart. So this is a very important role here, because those deals fall apart and nobody gets paid. And if you're the only person, at least you're the only family that's going hungry here, but that's not really a good thing. That's not what you want. So the administrative side is very important. And again, if that's something you struggle with, you need to have somebody in this role to help you oversee and keep track of things so you could focus on what you do best while they keep track of the books. Maybe this is a significant other, a spouse, again, a family member, something like that. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy or official here. But you could get hung up in the accounting and taking tax classes. You get hung up showing home after home after home after home after home. And if you're not doing anything to improve what you do or better understand how to become better, you could waste a lot of time here. And this is probably one of the better places to waste time in this grand scheme of things here, is actually working with buyers. But if you could shift over here working to sellers, focusing on this side a little bit more, it's typically about 1/3 of the amount of time it takes to close a seller versus with working with a buyer. So this could be lucrative, but it's all about working smarter, typically working with listings, as opposed to just more, which is where it's easy to get wrapped up in the more of just getting more leads, more buyers. But especially if you're disorganized, you could just be burning through leads. So again, getting back to the administrative, keeping track of everything. And you can see how you have to kind of shift these roles within your business. And there may be things that your broker provides. So maybe there's some sort of transaction coordination service you could use to help on the administrative side when you have deals under contract, to keep track of things and help you with your contract to close. A lot of different possibilities, a lot of different potential. And getting back to our courses here, the post-licensing course, this is what helps you develop a plan. This is what helps you learn more about real estate. If you're getting your broker license, the broker post-licensing is more about operating a brokerage. So if you want to get a head start in 2024, how much did you learn today? Reflecting on this, and maybe there's some stuff that you already understood, some stuff that you already knew, but what kind of ideas did you have? Just going through this little, not even like 30-minute or whatever it is we've been live on here today of a video. Now imagine going through a 45-hour or a 60-hour course and how many ideas it is that you might have. So if you truly want to get a head start on 2024, if you don't have a real estate license and you want to unlock all this potential, you need to get started. You need to get the license so you can have a seat at the table. If you've got your seat at the table, but you're like, now what do I do? What's my plan? What do I need to figure out? That's where you don't want to wait till your first renewal. That's what I did, and I wasted so much time because I wish I had this information in the post-licensing immediately, and that's why you should take that post-licensing as soon as you have your license, because that's how you lay out your plan. That's how you figure out the right brokerage for you to join. That's how you figure out how to present offers as opposed to just what's in a contract. So you're going to learn so many fundamentals of actually practicing real estate in that post-licensing course. If you need to do that post-licensing, get enrolled in it today. Now, as a sales agent, if you're already licensed, if you're already done your post-licensing, you're already with a broker and you're trying to take your business to that next step, to that next level, again, think like a team. Even if you're not planning on having a team, think about that team that's going on within your head, because all of those moving parts that we talked about, all those different roles, those are all roles it is that you're playing when you're a individual agent, a single agent type of situation. And you might say, well, you know what? I do want to leverage some other people. I'm willing to share the wealth, share the money I'm making to be able to make more of it. That's the idea. That's the name of the game behind a team and starting a brokerage. So if you really want to unlock that next level in your real estate career, it's the way that you make that exponential is when you're thinking bigger than yourself. You could have marginal improvements and even doubling, that could still be considered marginal. Because if you're able to double on your own, imagine what you could do if you could multiply your efforts. And that's where you could really achieve super exponential type of results. But if you want to think, again, exponential increases, that might start, number one, with just unlocking the capabilities of having a license. But then when you're ready to go to that next level, how do I build out a team? And now how do I, do that all in-house? So a broker license. And if you've got at least 2 years of experience, you could get your broker license. You could even stay at your current broker as a broker associate. And staying at your current brokerage as a broker associate allows you to, again, have the opportunity to start this brokerage whenever you want. All you've got to do now is file the paperwork, but you're ready to go. You've already achieved the license. You don't have to go through that whole learning process all over again when you're ready to actually officially start your brokerage. And maybe that day never comes, but you should be prepared for it, because having that as an opportunity, have that as an option, as well as having accumulated the knowledge that you'll acquire going through that broker licensing process is definitely going to improve your career, because people with a broker associate license compared to a sales associate license earn significantly more than people with just a sales associate license. Even just in a broker associate role, without even opening a brokerage, you already are going to earn more typically because of that knowledge, because of the ideas, because of the bigger thinking that you'll be able to do because you understand running a brokerage. And this whole concept of running a team here, this is basically just like running a brokerage here. Again, maybe just with a little micromanagement. A team is more typically a micromanaged version of a brokerage, but you could start a team without having to have a broker license. So a lot you could do. If you have questions on any of this, if you need to get enrolled in one of these courses, don't wait. Get a head start on 2024. If you're getting your real estate license, you want to get that process started now, especially in terms of the fingerprinting and the application. If you get enrolled, you'll have immediate access to the course information where you'll be able to go in there and get your fingerprints and your application. It's got links links for all of that. We also have it on the website as well, right at tsre.us if you need to find the fingerprinting or the application, because if you do that now, you're going to have a significant advantage over everyone else that's going to be, their New Year's resolution is to get a real estate license, and then they're filing their stuff in January. That's going to back up the DBPR, so get that process started now. Our classes are filling up. Our live classes do have limited availability. Even our live online classes, we cap the classes at a certain amount. So if you want to register, you could do so with just a $57 deposit. A $57 deposit will reserve your seat. You would pay the balance by, I believe it's 5 days or a week ahead of the actual class. And we also have financing payment programs. We have no interest financing options, as well as some long-term financing options that do have some interest. We have all the details right online at tsre.us, or again, if you want to call and reach out to us, 813-333-2676 is the phone number. We would love to help you take that next step, whether that's the first step or the 27th step in your real estate career. Reach out to us. Our advisors would love to answer any questions that you have and help you in any way it is that we can. Again, phone number 813-333-2676. I greatly appreciate you tuning in with us here today to help you advance your real estate career. Remember, we're here every single Friday, 12 noon Eastern time, so make sure you tune in next week. We'll be here live for a very special New Year's. So, well, I think we've got one more weekend before New Year's as well. But we've got New Year's coming up. We're going to be talking about New Year's resolutions. We're going to be diving deeper into goal setting and business planning. So get started now. Get enrolled in the courses that you need. Even if you know holidays are busy, get in there and at least get a little bit done. Get a little bit of a start. And you could jump in there at any time, especially with our on-demand programs. Our on-demand programs, you could work at them at your own pace, and they're broken down into very small segments to make it very easy to do on the go. Or if you want to, again, get committed to an actual classroom schedule, do that before that class fills up and you lose that opportunity. Again, any questions, 813-333-2676. Thank you again for tuning in with us here today. We'll be back next week. Until then, have a great weekend. Have a fantastic rest of your Friday, and we'll see you next Friday. Are you studying for your Florida real estate exam? If you are, you need to check out our Pass First Try strategy. You're going to love this. It's 4 steps that we break down the process to study for your Florida real estate exam. So you're set up to pass your Florida real estate exam, because that's what you're studying for, right? To pass your exam. It's 4 steps. Number 1, you learn the information. You've got to learn this to be able to